I just ship Nikolai and Zoya so hard. And I think that's the moral of this story. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my August wrap up. And August was a little bit of a weird reading month for me. I got towards the very end of August and realized that I had barely read anything. So I decided to do a very impromptu 24-hour readathon, which I did vlog, and it will be my next video after this one. I absolutely loved it. It was such a good time, and it did help me finish some books in August. So a lot of the ones I'm going to talk about today are ones that, if you want to hear kind of my in the moment thoughts as I was reading them, they will be in next week's vlog. So the first thing that I finished in August was Sick Kids in Love by Hannah Moskowitz, and this was a recommendation from Avery, and I absolutely loved it. It was really cute. I gave it 4 stars. It is a YA contemporary romance between 2 characters with chronic illnesses, and there was just a lot of really good discussion about like representation in the medical field of like chronic illnesses not being taken as seriously as other chronic illnesses, or women not being heard and taken seriously when they tell a medical professional that they're in pain or things like that. There was a lot of really good topics that were explored within this, and then on top of that, it was just a really cute romance. So I really enjoyed it, and our main character writes an advice column for her high school paper, and so between every chapter there was like a question and then different like characters' responses to that question, and I thought that was a really cool way to break up the chapters, and it was just a really good audiobook experience, so I would definitely recommend it. Next, I read Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker, and I ended up rating this. I don't usually rate graphic novels, but I did feel like this one had enough of a plot that I felt more comfortable with it, and so I gave it a 3. I really enjoyed it overall. It had a lot of like really good autumn vibes and things like that, which I really loved, but my issue with it was like halfway through the story, I realized that I still didn't really know how anyone's powers worked. The magic was a little bit confusing, and the action sequences, to me, were so confusing. Like, I could not figure out what was going on. They seemed to move a little bit too fast, and then the drawings didn't really communicate, like, what exactly was happening. Like, a character would start off on the right side of this huge creature and then end up on the left side and like knocked to the ground, and I'm like, how did that happen? Like, I don't know. So it was a little disjointed for me in that sense, but it was also, like I said, just a really like cozy kind of autumn read, and I did like it for that. And we have a romance between a witch and a werewolf, and that was super cute. So, but yeah, so it wasn't like the best graphic novel I've ever read, but it was still fun. So next I finished You Have a Match by Emma Lord, and this was an audiobook listen for me as well. I think it was last month I read Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, and so I was interested in listening to her other book, and I gave this a 3 stars as well. It started off as a 4-star for a while for me, and then some things just got really predictable, and so it ended up being a 3, which is I think what I gave Tweet Cute as well. I do think overall though this is probably a high 3 because I did like it better, and I think it had some like deeper themes going on that Tweet Cute kind of didn't have, which I mean it doesn't need to have, but that was just an aspect of You Have a Match that I really liked. There's a lot of discussion about like family relationships and finding yourself and doing what makes you happy and things like that, and not to mention, obviously you can tell from the cover, it is set at a summer camp, and I am a sucker for a summer camp setting, so just inherently I think I enjoyed it more for that reason. Summer camps are the best settings. Like, how could they not be? Especially for like romances. So I'm not really gonna give a an in-depth like summary of the plot because I went into it just knowing that it was a YA contemporary romance set at a summer camp, and that's what I got. So if that sounds good to you, I would definitely recommend it because it was really fun. And then next I read Sabrina the Teenage Witch by Kelly Thompson. This was volume 1, and I'm obsessed with all things Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I thought this was a really, really cute, like, refreshed kind of take on the series. To me, it kind of felt like a good combination between the 90s sitcom and then the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the comics and the show, I guess. But like, it wasn't as like dark by any means as Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but there were some more characters and some more plot lines that followed that more than the sitcom. But I think overall, like, it had the kind of cute sitcom vibes. So I think it was a really good mix, and I really love the art style. I just love Sabrina. I just love Sabrina. That's all I can say. Then I read King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and this took me 3 weeks. It took me most of the month to read it, and that's solely because I have not been in a fantasy mood for like a couple years, and I just don't think it's my genre anymore. But if like a plot of it is good enough, then I will read it anyway. But it takes me a while because you kind of have to like actively force yourself to read it and like push through all the fantasy elements to then come out the other side with like stunning characters, a really cool plot, all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know, please let me know if you've experienced this, where like you're loving a book so much, but you just hate the genre it is. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but that is precisely my experience with the King of Scars duology. And I only read King of Scars in August, so I'm not going to talk about Rule of Wolves until my September wrap-up, but it was a struggle, and to an extent it was like that with the Six of Crows duology as well, where I was reading it and I was like, wow, I really love these characters, like, I'm so invested, but then it's like I could never sit down and read it for long periods of time because I was like, I'm not in a fantasy mood, and it's the weirdest feeling, and it's so annoying. But yeah, King of Scars took me like 3 weeks. It's like a 500 something page book, but I ended up giving it 4 stars because I love Nikolai. That's why I was super excited to read this, because he was like my favorite part from the original trilogy. And I love Nina from the Six of Crows duology, and then I never really thought twice about Zoya, honestly, in the original trilogy, but after reading King of Scars, I love Zoya so much. She might be in my top 3, like, favorite characters from the whole Grishaverse. I just love her, and so that was great. Her snarky, witty banter with Nikolai was great. I was really invested in the plot, and I had such a good time with it, even though I didn't really actively enjoy reading it because it was fantasy. So, I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just how I felt. I just ship Nikolai and Zoya so hard. And I think that's the moral of this story. So it was definitely a struggle to get through, but it was definitely worth it. I'm not really going to summarize the plot because I feel like either everyone already knows it or they have no interest in reading it, because you'd really have to have read the original trilogy to get to these books. So I'm not even going to bother, but it follows Nikolai, and he's my book boyfriend, okay? Then I read the 3 Tea Dragon Society books. So the first one is the Tea Dragon Society, the second one is the Tea Dragon Festival, and the third one is the Tea Dragon Tapestry. And I had read the first 2 in 2019, and then I completely forgot that they existed because I remember reading the first 2 and then looking up and seeing that the third one was coming out soon, but it hadn't come out yet. And I was like, oh, I should remember this so that I can get the third one when it comes out. And obviously I did not remember that, but I got them through the library, and so I was like, I'm just gonna like read them all in one day, and it was So good. I'm so sad that the storyline is over. I think if Kay O'Neill really wanted to, like, it'd be so easy to keep going in that world. Like, either in a spin-off kind of series with different characters or keep following the characters from these three. I don't know, but it is just such a cute time, and it's like if anyone wants like a feel-good comfort read, Tea Dragon Society, hands down, is the cutest. Alright, and the last thing that I read in the month of August was Elizabeth and Her German Garden by Elizabeth von Arnim. And I had not heard of this author before, but this book was loaned to me by my friend Audrey, who had read it and thought that I would like it, and she was right. I still don't really know much about Elizabeth von Arnim. The only thing I know that like stood out to me at the beginning of the book, where it had like a little bit of an author bio, was that she had an affair with H.G. Wells. Little old school author tea for ya. But yeah, this was published I think in like 1898, so late 1800s, and it's kind of semi-autobiographical, which you can kind of see by the fact that the main character's name is Elizabeth, and it felt very autobiographical, so I don't know like how much of it was just straight up autobiography, but then Elizabeth was like, oh, it's just semi, you know, like, was that the case, or was there actual stuff changed so it was actually legitimately just semi-autobiographical? I don't know. My instinct is that it's completely autobiographical, and she just didn't want to come out and say that. But yeah, this book definitely is not for everyone. It is a novella, so it's really short. It's like 120 pages or 100 pages, something like that. But it is basically journal entries of Elizabeth talking about her life, and she lives in Germany, and she has this gorgeous garden in her backyard that she loves to spend time in. She loves spending her time researching different flowers and things like that, and planning out how her garden looks, and deep diving into all things gardening. And that really isn't an interest that women were supposed to have back then. And so her husband really doesn't understand it. He thinks she should be interested in raising kids and cooking. And so it's kind of a stream of consciousness in a way of her expressing her unhappiness with the fact that no one seems to truly understand how happy her garden makes her feel. And like, we have a couple, like almost I would say a journal entry a month for a year. So we go through all the seasons, and I think around Christmas time, her friends come over to stay at her house for a while, and she is also like an amazing introvert, because there's some amazing lines where she was basically like, how do I tell my friends to leave my house because I really want to be alone and I'm tired of socializing? And I was like, I understand that one. That was really fun. Like, some parts were really funny. Her like inner monologue was funny, but you know, at the end of the day, she was kind of trying to hint to her friends as well that, you know, hey, this is what really makes me happy, and to an extent they kind of got it, but they also didn't. But there was a lot of good discussions about like women's rights and women's societal expectations in Germany at that time, and I think, you know, a lot of parts of Europe at that time. And so I really, really enjoyed that. It definitely read like a Virginia Woolf book. It had a lot of similarities for me between Mrs. Dalloway and A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, but I think it's a lot easier to read. The writing is a lot easier to read. It's a lot more accessible than those two Virginia Woolf ones, but I was kind of hoping for some sort of closure on the situation at the end. I was kind of hoping for her to, I don't know, take all of these thoughts that we've been reading and act upon them and really fight for her own happiness. And that didn't happen. It's not necessarily that, like, the ending was unsatisfying. I think it's just that it was a novella. Like, it would have been more of like a full-length novel, I think, if she had gone into that. And maybe, you know, if it is really closely following her life, the fact that she published it kind of says a lot about that as well. That wouldn't necessarily need to be in the end of the book, if that makes sense. But yeah, because Elizabeth in the book, her husband was a tool, and he kind of goes on this whole Meninist rant about how women can't vote basically because their intellect is the same as children's, and all this stuff that is really annoyingly like arguments that we still have today, which like obviously women can vote in the United States, but we still have the whole Meninist, you know, women are supposed to be subservient, like that still hasn't gone away. And so like I do love reading about that kind of thing, but I kind of wish there was more like smash the patriarchy vibes at the end of it, kind of similar to the end of The Awakening by Kate Chopin. So anyway, there's a lot to say about a 100-page book apparently, but yeah, if any of that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend it. It's kind of like it would be a really good way to kind of dip your toes into Virginia Woolf, I think. And it is nice, it's so short. I read it in like 2 sittings. So yeah, I have since loaned it to my mom, who I think is also enjoying it. It was just really cool, and it was nice to read kind of like a classic by a woman who I hadn't really heard of before. So yep, that's my wrap up. Thank you for watching. I need to edit and upload this today. Because it's gonna go live tomorrow, because I have been putting off filming this wrap up and I really don't know why, but I hope you enjoyed. As always, let me know if you've read any of these books or what your thoughts on them were, and I hope you're having a great day or night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!